Before we start today, I wanted to show you just an O-ring chain. The O-ring chain has the rubber seals on either side of the links, and the center roller has factory packed grease, and this prevents the grease from coming out even after cleaning. So the issue is with a non-O-ring chain, it doesn't have these rubber seals. So today we're going to have a look at a non-O-ring chain and how to make it factory new again. So I'll just show you a non-O-ring chain just for a quick comparison before we get started, and then we'll get into it. This is a non-O-ring chain. Today we're going to be looking at how to renew a non-O-ring chain to make it like factory new. So the first thing that you have to understand is that in each of these rollers is factory grease when you first get it. But over time, through wear and road grime and even cleaning with normal chain cleaner, the factory grease inside these rollers does two things. One is that it disappears slowly and you have no lubrication in these rollers. And number two, the grime inside these rollers stay in there even if you try to clean them out with a brush. Most people just use some sort of solvent and they brush the links, and they on the outside they're quite clean, but yet inside these rollers there's still quite a lot of contamination. So we're going to start with the basics, cleaning the whole chain like new and then lubricating it like new. So let's look at the first step. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the master link here on the chain. This is the non-O-ring chain. I'm using my Sur-On here, but all 50cc motorcycles and 125 motorcycles usually have non-O-ring chains, like for example the Honda Monkey or the Honda Dax. Yeah, they'll all be similar. You don't need to undo the main axle or the adjuster unless you want to adjust the chain tension. The actual sprocket holds the chain together, so a lot of people undo the axle, but it's not necessary. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll take the master link out. Oops, I need to hold it on the bottom part. There we go. So that little link comes out. Then we can pull the side link off, and then this just can be pushed through. And as I said, the sprocket holds the chain on, so you can just pull that out and then take the chain off. And then putting it on is exactly the same. You just wrap the clean chain around the sprocket and just put the master link back in. So undoing the axle is completely a waste of time. Okay, so we'll take the chain off and then we'll go to the next part of the process. Okay, so here's our chain. So the next part that we're going to do is we're going to soak it in kerosene. Now, you can only do this with a non-O-ring chain. If you do this with the O-ring chain, the O-ring I showed you before, you're going to destroy the rubber seals. So what we're going to do now is soak this in kerosene. The kerosene essentially is going to get into here. I'll just get a better shot for you. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to use is just a normal brush to get the loose bits of grime away. And just brush it in. Make sure you're wearing gloves because kerosene does tend to dry your hands out. It's not really good. Okay, I'm just going to flip it over. You can see the colour of the kerosene now. It's very grey, brown colour. Okay, so that's basically the outside either side of the chain. So we want to try to get into the inside part in here on either side. So I'm just going to get a stiffer nylon brush for that, and then we'll go through and clean that now. Okay, so I'm just going to use this thick nylon brush. I'm going to use that inside the actual rollers themselves. Make sure you get plenty of kerosene on there. So by doing this, it's actually taking the dirt from inside of these rollers themselves, inside here, which is the important thing. Normally, if you just use a chain cleaner, it doesn't really get into the inside of those rollers, which is really what you want. Okay, I'm just going to flip it over the other side. We'll do the inside of the chain. Just remember to keep putting a lot of kerosene on there. Keep it nice and wet. You probably only need to do this, well, I guess it depends if you're an on-road rider or an off-road rider, but probably once a year for on-road, or maybe possibly twice, but off-road maybe 4 times a year. So once that's done, you can just give it a bit of a shake. You want to try to get as much penetration into those links as possible. Move the links around. The next thing we're going to do is hang it up, and then we're going to clean off the kerosene. That's the next step. So inside here, at the moment, it's penetrated, the kerosene's penetrated the edges here, and then it's also penetrated the inside of these rollers, and then the outside of all of those links. So the outside, the inside, and the outside and the inside of the links are clean, and the rollers are extremely clean inside. You can just spin it, and they just continue to rotate. Look at that. They'll just rotate round and around. So that means that you've done a good job. If they just keep spinning once you twist them. So when these chains come off the production line, that's the first step. They're linked together, and they're exactly like this with no actual lubrication whatsoever, but they're just put together, and then they're actually just tested to make sure that the rollers turn and that the links all move. Okay, we're done. So now we're going to drain it, and I'll show you how I do that next. Okay, we're just going to remove the chain, and then I'm just going to put a little hook through it like that, and the chain's just going to be hung out. Let's move over here. I'll put some cardboard down. So there we go, it's just hanging down, and then the next step is we're going to start cleaning it, and we're going to use a degreaser for this. So I'll just get that, that'll be our next step. Okay, so the next step is just to use some cleaner, and brake cleaner or parts cleaner, and we're just going to rinse off the kerosene. Okay, so we'll just clean it all the way down. This is important because you want to make sure that there's no contaminated kerosene inside here, because we're going to lubricate it. If you have any kerosene left in here, it's going to break down the lubrication. So make sure it's really well rinsed. That's really looking good. It's really well rinsed now. Okay, that's perfect. It's been cleaned, there's no kerosene in there now, but it's wet with the cleaner. So the next step is to dry the chain thoroughly before we put it into the next step, which is the deep oil penetration. Okay, so the next step is we're going to use some compressed air to to dry off the chain from the prior cleaning. If you don't have access to one of these air compressors, then a can of compressed air will do the same. So this is going to be a little bit noisy. Okay, so now this has been perfectly clean and now it's perfectly dry and it's ready for the deep lubrication part of the cleaning. So we can take that up and we can actually it's really super flexible at the moment because there's absolutely no lubrication on it at the moment. We're just going to roll it up and I'll show you the next step. So if I can hold that to the camera, hopefully that'll focus. You can see it looks brand new already. It looks fantastic. Okay, so the next step is we just want to lubricate it. So let's do that. Okay, so the key part of this is the actual lubricating oil. This is chainsaw oil. Now, you may have gearbox oil like this. This is rated at SAE 75 W90, which, you know, if you don't have any access to chainsaw oil or you can't buy any, then this is okay but you tend to get what's called fly off of the chain if you use this. So chainsaw oil has an SAE of around between 150 and 200, so it's very, very sticky. This isn't the final lubrication, by the way. This is to soak the inside of the rollers with lubrication. So we're going to let it soak in here. So we just simply get our rolled chain and we're just going to put it into the oil. We can see that in here. I'll hold the camera up in a second. You can see it's soaking. And you're going to let that soak for probably 15 minutes to get it to penetrate inside the links itself. And so here it is inside here soaking. This is an EK chain and it's a 420. And I think most small bikes, 50cc 125s, are usually around a 420 link chain. But yeah, that's it soaking. So you can see little bubbles coming out. That means that the air's getting into it. Coming out of it, sorry, and it's soaking in between the rollers, which is what you want to do. So after the 15 minutes I will show you the next step, but basically we're going to drain this oil off the actual chain itself before we put on the final lubrication. Okay, so it's been soaking now, so now it's time to go back to the next step. So we're going to carry this over to the same places where we cleaned it before, and then we're just going to put this under here. And then we're going to bring up the chain like this. Just hook it up. And then now what's going to happen is all this oil is just going to drip down and it's going to go back into this container. The oil is clean, so you can reuse this maybe 10-20 times. Just put a cover over the oil when you're finished. But this is extremely sticky oil, the chainsaw oil. It's, as I said, it's about SAE 200. And what the main idea is it's going to be soaking inside the rollers. So that's the key point here. This is not the final lubrication. It's only to lubricate the inside of the rollers. So it takes about 1 hour for it to fully drain down. So the ideal time would be probably around lunchtime. You let it drip down and have your lunch, come back in an hour's time, and it'll be ready for the next step. So let's do that now. Okay, so it's just been over 1 hour now, and I'm just going to remove the chain. One thing, you can just use a rag or a paper towel just to clean any excess oil that's on there, but basically it should all have drained off. So that's the chain. I've wiped off the excess on the outside, so the nice chainsaw oil is on the inside of the rollers. So the last step is the final lubrication, and to do that we're going to be putting it actually on the bike, and then we'll do the final lubrication. So let's get on to the next step. Okay, so we're just going to put the chain back on, and I'll show you the reverse method of this. So that saves you undoing the center axle. So now we're just going to pull this. And you can see that it's lined up in the center already. You can just use a pair of pin nose pliers. Just helps you pull it together. And then you take your clean link that you've cleaned and lubricated and just push it through. And then put your side on, and then put your locking clip on. Make sure you get it around the right way. And that's it, it's done. So we could do the chain, the tension is good, and we didn't have to remove this. It's because the sprocket actually holds everything together. That's what it's designed to do, and makes it easier. So now we have the fully internally lubricated chain. We'll just give it one more clean on the outside, and then we'll do the last lubrication. We can just use a paper towel for this, just give it a wipe, just to get any excess oil off the outside. Okay, now we're ready to do the final lubrication. I normally just use this master link as a reference, so I know where I've done. So I'm just going to use some what's called super chain lube. This super chain lube goes on reasonably sticky, but it dries quite hard, and it lubricates. It's designed to lubricate on the inside of these parts, on the links, and then basically we're done. So it seals in the oil inside the rollers basically. It sort of forms, if you like, a hard O-ring, which is what we want to do. Okay, always spray on the inside out, so the centrifugal force forces the oil out rather than flying on the opposite way. If you did it on the top part of the chain here, it flies off. This will fly into the chain. And there we are, back to the start again. So that's been fully lubricated, and we'll just give it about 15 minutes for this lubrication to set, and then we're ready to go. You won't need to do this type of cleaning for probably at least, as I said, a year if it's a road bike, but if it's an off-road bike, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. But after you finish this, the next time you do your normal chain maintenance, you can just use normal chain cleaner and then lubricate it normally. But today's non-O-ring chain cleaning was to get inside the rollers and to clean those parts out. Okay, so here we have the finished chain on the bike, and all the mud guards are back on, chain guards, etc. It looks brand new, and that'll stay that way for at least another 6 months. I do this off-roading, but I do regular chain maintenance, usually twice a month. But this is the second time I've done the full chain maintenance on this bike this year. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you could actually use this information. So if you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll be sending some more videos up soon. Thank you very much for watching.